Facebook is back online after a major outage that also affected Instagram and WhatsApp. Services were gradually restored after around 6 hours of disruption. Now, Facebook apps and messaging platforms were down around the globe, impacting businesses available via Facebook logins. The company has apologized and says it doesn't believe its systems were hacked or that any user data was compromised. Now, after services were restored, engineers at Facebook put out a statement where they said that the outage was, quote, caused by configuration changes on the backbone routers that coordinate network traffic between data centers. Now, this disruption to network traffic had a cascading effect on the way data centers communicate, bringing our services to a halt. You can tell that was written by an engineer, but now joining me at the business desk is Stephen Beardsley. Hey, Steve, good to see you. So, I mean, this outage affected a number of businesses. Just talk to us about how Facebook is so important, how it's an integral part of services for many companies.
Yeah, Christine, for most big companies, it's not critical infrastructure. Right. Facebook doesn't host websites, although it does provide key portals for customers to get through, to see advertisements, to click through and get purchases. That's not nothing, but their websites remained up. For smaller businesses, that might be a different story, though, especially if we look at places like India, Africa. India in particular, for WhatsApp, that's its biggest country in terms of user numbers, 400 million users for WhatsApp. And we do see a lot of business coordination with that platform, whether it's employees communicating with one another, whether it's building community groups around products and brands. And also we're seeing more efforts to actually drive sales through WhatsApp itself. And so that would mean that, for example, Facebook has recently taken stake in an e-commerce platform in India. And together they've been developing actually a platform through which you can order something on WhatsApp and then you can track that order through WhatsApp. So if the app goes down, in that case, a lot of small merchandisers in India could potentially lose out at that time. But again, it just depends on how long of an outage it is. But it does show the reliance.
Right. And what does this mean for Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is not something that you want to happen. This is, we know that they looked at this and they saw it as a critical issue for their reputation. Obviously, you don't want your main service to go down. All three services, in fact. You want people to stay there and to watch the site, to stay on the site. And it shows that they need to have some redundancies in their systems. I mean, if people couldn't even get into their doors and their offices in Facebook, it shows how everything flows through their own system. That's an issue. But ultimately, stoppages happen. Outages happen in the internet world, including major host sites that host actually big internet sites.
That's true.
I would say, what I found interesting was how many people were going on platforms, other platforms, to joke about the relief from being off of Facebook properties for a while. And that sort of points to one of the bigger concerns for Facebook, and that is that audience growth is falling in some of its key markets. The US and EU, it's flattening out. Those are the markets where it earns big revenue. Yeah. So while it's growing in places like Asia, India, things like that, they're not really making their money there. So they need to make sure that they're getting the excitement still. And what we're seeing more is a kind of exasperation with it. So that's maybe why we're seeing things like trying to tap into new, younger markets, like things with Instagram for kids, this controversial idea that's now been shut down. So I think that's actually going to be their bigger challenge. And I think we see a peek into that challenge with what happened yesterday.
Well, interesting times. And Stephen, thanks so much for that. That's Stephen Beardsley from DW Business. And for more on this, I'm joined by David Lumb in Los Angeles. He is the mobile editor at TechRadar. It's an online publication that is focused on technology. It's good to have you on the program, David. Tell us, what more do we know now about this outage?
Well, not much more than we knew a few hours ago. Facebook hasn't given any official comment about what happened, nor has it released this information in its online portals, on Twitter, on Instagram, anything else. So we really just have the reporting to tell us what happened.
David, a lot of people, of course, if you went online, I saw on my Twitter, were making fun of this, right? I was certainly relieved to get a break from some of those Instagram influencers, but this has some real serious implications for a lot of businesses. Just tell us about how integral Facebook's platforms are for many businesses around the world.
Well, I know when we think of businesses, we think of websites, but a lot of businesses don't have those portals, or they're trying to reach other people on other platforms. So they'll have a storefront on Instagram, they'll communicate with their customers on Instagram, on WhatsApp, on Facebook Messenger. So this really probably was a big blow to small businesses, and that's tough, especially in this economy.
And what about WhatsApp? I know that for a lot of people, WhatsApp is really the main or the primary source of communication.
Yeah, we definitely saw a lot of people lamenting that WhatsApp was down, especially to break communication with families across countries, across continents. So it was kind of terrible to see that one outage in a social network then sort of dominoed effect that people couldn't contact each other, and really kind of brought to light how much we depend on all of these systems in one company.
You were alluding to the fact that we are so dependent on this tech giant. Perhaps talk to us a little bit more about that, and perhaps the fragility of the internet, which is something that we don't often think about.
Definitely. And this might not have happened for one particular company or one particular service, but it was all these services and all these companies, or this company, Facebook, having all these companies. So it's kind of an argument against this sort of consolidation of all these things, the acquisition of all these networks that we have, communication, business, all these things that we now are routed through, in this case, one internet network technology. And when that broke, it broke bad for, in this case, over 6 hours.
Right. Does it perhaps surprise you that Facebook hasn't taken adequate action in addressing these allegations?
No, and I think that's kind of par for the course for Facebook, where they will have a sort of apology when this happens, promise more action, and then not have a sort of plan to get in case, or really wait till the fire to die down. So I think we're seeing some actual, behind the scenes that we haven't had before, whereas we just got apologies.
Here in Europe, David, lawmakers have made attempts to sort of curb, the influence of tech giants. Is that something that you see lawmakers in the US doing anytime soon?
Based on precedent, I wouldn't expect it, but we do have some lawmakers trying to put together legislation to protect children, especially 16 and unders, especially from manipulation, and maybe their intentions are great, but generally when Facebook has visited Capitol Hill, it's been met with misunderstanding and general lack of savviness that has led to a sort of soft pushback, much softer than what we see in the EU. So I expect if Congress does anything, it might follow the EU in pushing for a harder regulation.
Okay, thank you. That's David Lumb, mobile editor at TechRadar, talking to us from LA there. Thanks, David.
Thank you.